Well, it's the midweek. Happy Wednesday, Jasiri family, and thank you for joining us. So today, we celebrate a very, very, very important day because globally, September 10th is commemorated as World Suicide Prevention Day, a day to remember lives lost, to raise awareness, and to push for change. And, that's actually exactly what we are going to be doing today. Now, this year's theme is changing the narrative on suicide, and it's a call to move away from stigma and silence and instead embrace compassion, understanding, and action. So because suicide is not just a statistic, it's an action that impacts families and communities. Today's conversation couldn't be more important, and we will definitely get into all of that after the break.
But first, we're going to be diving into a conversation that touches love, parenting, and gender expectations. Chef Ify sparked a debate when she argued that refusing to be a step-parent is easier on men than it is on women. In a society where family structures are shifting and blended families are becoming more common, what does it really mean to choose or refuse stepfatherhood or step-parenthood? And why does it seem that the rules are not the same for men and women? Chef Ify herself joins us now to get into this very, very interesting conversation. Ify, welcome back to Jasiri. We're very happy to have you.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be back here.
Good morning, Ify. So I spoke to her last night. She didn't know that her small video had caused a big firestorm and controversy. And I was like, we need to talk about this. And the truth is, we don't often talk about step-parents in Nigeria enough. But we see how they're often portrayed in Nollywood and see stories that people share on social media. And thankfully, we're also now seeing some good stories about step-parents. Yeah. But this is about choosing to be a step-parent. So, Ify, what led you to making that video that you made and posted that has now started a social media conversation?
Okay, so it was me just scrolling on Instagram on a beautiful Sunday morning, and I saw someone who said he didn't want to be a stepfather, that nothing would ever make him be a stepfather. And I was like, okay, I mean, everyone has their everyone can make your choice, it's your decision and stuff. And as usual, I'll usually go through comment section for such things because I wanted to know how both women and men were reacting to the guy's statement. So I went to the comment section, and that was what shocked me. A lot of guys were like, they would never ever be. So they went on to say, now mumu man, they become stepfather and stepdad and stuff. And then one guy then also made a comment and said, well, it was not a problem. He would be a stepfather. It's not a problem at all. So far, he loves his wife. He would, take in her kids or anything. And then the attack on that guy was on another level. Men attacking him, saying, why would he ever say such a thing? Anyway, congratulations, President Mumu Man. And it got me thinking, what should he be a Mumu Man? Most women are stepmoms, most women are stepmoms, and no one overthinks it. It almost seems to be the order of the day. In fact, if she refuses to be a stepmom, then she runs the risk of not remaining married or being labeled, a wicked woman who is not fit to nurture another man's child or stuff. And then just got me thinking, why would men proudly say that, and then women cannot proudly come online and say, I can never be a stepmother. Now, mumu women, they be stepmoms and stuff. Why are women expected to be that? I mean, everyone should make a choice and live with it. No one should be made to feel guilty or pressured for making such a decision.
So there's something you said that caught my attention and got me thinking, because it often feels like women are expected to just naturally fill the role of stepmother, as if nurturing comes easy and automatically to women. Do you think that's where part of the problem comes from? That idea, that expectation that all women are nurturers and somehow just know automatically, intrinsically, how to be mothers?
I feel that is a big challenge. You see, men just step into the role of I'm a provider. I won't generalize to see to say all men, but most men, right, just step into the role and say, I'm a provider, I'm to provide everything, provide security, provide this, provide that, financial obligations and stuff. But they just leave the nurturing bit to the woman as if that is her role through and through. Just do it. It's for you. We men, if we do it, you hear people saying, oh, thank you for helping your wife at home. Thank you for helping out with the kids. And I'm like, it's both parties.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's part of, men should step more into that role and see it more as one of their duties and obligation to also be a nurturer. So yeah.
Well, Ify, even for the women, I'm sure, those that are in that role right now, they have moments of doubt where they get to think, am I doing enough?
Yeah.
Do they even want me there? They have so many questions. They question themselves. But do you think that women need to start adopting the same unapologetic stance, that men take in refusing step parenting?
Yeah.
Well, you see, I really, really think women too should step into, should be able to make a choice and say, I refuse. I don't want to be a stepmom. I don't want to, whether it's before they get married or even in their marriage, they should be able to say, I don't want to be a stepmom. And I'll tell you something, it's difficult on both sides, Somebody sent me a message and said, he's a guy, his mom was a stepmom and it was so tough on her. And not only on the mom, but on the kids themselves. Because the mom always made sure her stepkids were satisfied before her kids. And when they would, display pleasure and stuff, the mom always told them, please, just be patient. The world will judge me. They will call me wicked. So she always made sure her stepkids were fine. Her kids were unhappy, but she chose her stepkids first. Why? Because of society, because of what people would say. So I think it's just unfair to all parties involved, and people should be made to make a choice without stigma and fear and pressure.
But
Yeah, before you ask this, because Ify, this thing, as we're talking about it, you just think about what women are expected to accept in marriages. If a man has a child outside and decides to bring that child into the marriage or into the home he shares with his wife is expected to just go with the flow, treat the child as her own, as I hope many women would do. But it's the pressure of not being able to say, you know what, I don't want. And if it means the end of the marriage, she and her family and other people, including society, should be okay with that. But we're expected to go with the flow. We're expected not to make a fuss. We're expected to welcome a child who could be the product of an extramarital affair into your marriage, into your home. And it just feels like women's feelings are just railroaded in many instances. And a lot of people are saying, you know what? It's time for women to start being as selfish as men. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree. If a woman does not want to step into that role, she should be able to say, no, I don't want it. And if it's the end of the marriage, fine. But you see, women are a bit scared, not a bit, we're very scared of saying, no, I don't want to step into this role by force. Because when they do, it's the same society that would shame them and would ridicule them. This one if you stay for husband house. This one, they don't even want to know the reason. She's not married, whatever reason, it is her fault. She cannot stay in a man's house. She's not married, this, that. So, you see, it then makes the choice, it almost makes it as if there's no choice there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? So stay in that marriage, take care of it, like it or not. And heaven help you. Treat that child unfairly or treat the child like you would your own child yourself. Treat the child like your child. People will talk. Did you see how she treated that child? Eyes are on you. The spotlight is on you. Be free in your own house.
Ify, I know since since you dropped this video, you must have received a lot of feedback after the video was posted, and people would have been saying all sorts of things. What's the general thing? What's the general consensus of what people are saying under the post? Are they pro it? Are they against it? Or they just think that you are just like deluding yourself, like the Delulu moment? This is something that is expected of women. Don't get into the fray.
You see, it really, really shocked me that the kind of reaction and responses I got, it was shocking. The men were vehemently against my posts. And I was wondering why. I'm not saying anything. I'm only saying women should have a choice too. Women should be able to create these boundaries without feeling stigma, pressure, shame, societal, whatever. That's all I'm saying. Why are you men attacking me? And under the comment section, the women were very happy and very grateful and saying, oh my God, no one talks about this enough. Thank you for speaking about this. Thank you for that. Thank you for this. And in my comment section, some men came to explain why they wouldn't want to be a stepdad. They would say things like, one guy, in fact, said he was a stepfather, and along the line, the woman left him to go back to the baby daddy, and that left him devastated. So I get there are reasons why men won't want to be a stepfather too. Another one said when they want to discipline the child starts saying, you're not my dad, don't talk to me that way. Another one told me that, in trying to discipline the child, the mother herself, that's his wife, would say, please don't treat my child like that. Emphasis on child. So that's why a lot of men don't want to be stepfathers or stepdads. And there are also the positive sides of it. A lot of people also came out to say they were brought up by their stepdads and they're happily living together. Their stepdad treated them well. So I had so many things like that in my DM. People saying they were happy I was bringing up this conversation, and saying challenges they've also faced. Men saying why they have refused to be stepdads. So it's just been a whole lot. Like someone was waiting for someone to talk about it.
Yeah. But it's interesting that the complaints that the men share are complaints that women would also have as a step-parents. I don't think it's about the gender of the step-parents, because if you're a stepmother for a child, you should be expected to discipline the child as well, just the same way you would discipline your own child. And so the complaints that the men have should be the complaints that women have as well. And it's interesting to me, they feel like they are the ones they're the only ones who feel this way about raising another person's child. If in the long run, what do you think we should take away from this conversation? Yesterday I was telling you, we have a lot of conversations we don't have in this country, and this is just one of the ones that you have brought up in all of this. And how do we get into a point where we're able to start having these conversations before relationships? As soon as you find out that the person you're dating has children, you need to decide if you want to move forward. You need to decide what kind of relationship, if you move forward, you might have with the child. What is going to be your role or your place in their life? Is there, I said original, is their biological parents present and actually present in their lives? All of those dynamics can create good dynamics for step-parenthood or even bad ones. So what are these conversations we really need to be having, especially for relationships?
Right. I feel like we should have the of before you step into it, if there's a stepchild involved, a child comes in the course of the marriage, what is it going to be like? I'm not going to accept it. So people should know how to behave and their expectation. I also feel like if it's before a marriage, women should make it clear. Women can choose themselves and say, no, I know what society expects. Society expects me to get married. But if it means I'll have to cope with a situation like this, I don't want it. And society and cultural expectations have to be okay with it, with me remaining unmarried. We're not equating my being married or unmarried with my value. Society should place value on me as a human being, on my skills, on my happiness, on my impact, rather than whether I am married or unmarried. Because when you fall to the societal pressures, that is when you don't want to be a stepmom, but you have to take it in because of what people would say. So we need to start having these conversations and bring up our kids, especially our daughters, to know you have a choice. And yeah, when it comes to cultural expectation versus your happiness, please choose your happiness. Choose it, okay? And not because if I don't get married now, everyone will call me old maid. Know that you have value and you can live a full life, whether you're married or not. So you don't fall into the wrong, you don't fall into what you don't want to do. Become a wicked stepmother just because you feel pressure. No. And if you decide, you have that thought, you decide you want to be a stepmom, you don't have a problem with that, please be the best that you can, even though your best, I mean, that was another issue, but that's between you and your conscience. Take it in, be the best, and yeah, let it be. So those are conversations we need to start having. Yeah. Women can make a choice, no stigma attached to it. Yeah. And women are still valuable whether married or not.
Thank you so much, Chef Ife. It's always very, very pleasurable to have these conversations with you. Thank you for starting one of these conversations we didn't know we needed to have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ife. We'll see you soon.
Bye. This conversation is, you know, it got me thinking since yesterday because I'm a single mom myself, and I know how difficult the dynamics of having another parent. I've had the privilege of parenting someone I dated's children, and I know, in fact, the children was even warm and accepting, but I still know how difficult it was for me to allow him parent my own children because of our difference in values. Even the way he was parenting his own children, I didn't like. So sometimes you can look at a woman like me. Do you know that if they ask me to choose, if I had the benefit of choice, I really would not want to be a step-parent. I really would not want it because sometimes I've seen my mother do it, and I know how difficult. It's almost every woman who has successfully done it, trust me, they went through a lot of trauma.
So doesn't that reference the story she shared, the DM, where the man said that his mom went out of her way to please the stepchildren over her own children? And in the long run, it'll affect their own relationship. We can understand the pressure because any small thing, if they don't have the same meat, if they don't get closer, any small thing will be, it's because you're not the mother. It's because you didn't give birth to them.
Do you know how challenging? I tell my kids now, maybe it's a new age thinking. I say because their dad is very much in their life. So I say, I'm not looking for a dad for you. So my partner might not be fitting that daddy role. He's fitting partner role for me. But your father is very present in your life. So I'm not looking for replacement for him. If he chips in and, you know, parents alongside, it's not like I'm expecting it as a role for him.
I think it's because you guys had conversations. When people lack the ability to sit down and talk about expectations, you'll get a situation where you just have a child and you just expect the person to fall in line or fall in place. And people stumble through it. Being a mother or father, biological is one thing. Being a step is a completely different side of raising children.
I think when it comes to being a step, I think, you know, one needs to understand that you're not there to replace the parent, but you're there as an extra adult to guide the children. If you, you know, have that thinking, if you have that mentality, then everything would actually go as planned. You know, like I said, there are doubts, you know, even for the step parents and even the way society sees step parents as outsiders in the first place, the way you're even being treated from the past, the exes or the exes family members in itself is enough to actually discourage, you know, people or anyone from wanting to be step parents. So, but then it takes a lot of patience. You need
I look at my stepmom now, and in retrospect, I know that it must have been difficult for her coming into a house that had 4 children already. And you know how we just saw her as an outsider for the very longest time. And she, you know, she parented me even more. We call her mom, we call her mommy, we call my mom mama.
And then it now seems
but
as if your step-parent parents you better than your own parents, you feel
that's
guilty. It's a conversation on different levels. But the basic thing is that step-parenting isn't the same game for men and women. At the end of the day, though, it's a personal choice. No one should be shamed for their personal choice. So, coming up after the break, let's discuss how to change the narrative surrounding suicide. What does that really mean for us here in Nigeria? Joining us after the break is Dr. Abiri, consultant psychiatrist and COO at SIDO, to help us break it all down. Stay with us, Jasiri continues after.
Welcome back to Jasiri. Now, today is not just another day, it's World Suicide Prevention Day, and it forces us to confront a painful reality. Suicide is one of the world's deadliest public health crises, and yet it is preventable. Every year, more than 720,000 people die by suicide. That means that in the time it takes to have this conversation, dozens of people around the world will have taken their own lives. For young people aged 15 to 29, it's the third leading cause of death, robbing families, communities, and nations of futures that should have been lived. And here's where it cuts even deeper. Over 70% of these deaths happen in low and middle income countries like Nigeria, where stigma still keeps people silent, mental health is underfunded, and professional support is far out of reach for most. That's why today we're not tiptoeing around the subject. We're asking the difficult questions about suicide, the gaps in our system, and the responsibility we all share in preventing these needless deaths. Because while the numbers are sobering, the truth is this: every single suicide can be averted if the right support, understanding, and interventions are in place. Our guest is Dr. Gbonjubola Abiri. She's consultant psychiatrist, trauma recovery specialist, and CEO of ReadyMed Consulting Services. She's a passionate mental health advocate and educator, and she's going to help us dig deeper into the realities, the myths, and the solutions. Dr. Abiri, welcome to Jasiri.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, she stumbled into our previous conversation. I've just been seeing her reactions to us, but thank you so much. This is a very important conversation for all of us here in Nigeria, especially in a country that does not like to have some of these critical conversations, and we're bringing it here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me today.
All right, so Doc, suicide is preventable, yet every 40 seconds someone takes their own life. In a country that is as peculiar, Lolo always says so, that is as peculiar as Nigeria, like where it is so easy to be stigmatized when you speak up, and then systems are weak. There's nothing really in place to act like a shock absorber for that, to say somebody is intending to commit suicide and you can talk the person out of it. Who do you think is responsible for this in the country? I'll give you three options. Who is failing the people the most in Nigeria? Is it the government? Is it the healthcare system? Or is it just society itself?
So, if I want to be honest with my response, very directly, I would say that it's all of us. All of us, because we all have a role to play. And unfortunately, we've continued to fail ourselves, even in our relationships with each other. I mean, before this conversation came on, we're talking about the relationships and the expectations of women over the generations and how women have continued to suffer. And so, unfortunately, our sociocultural beliefs, our religious beliefs have been so ingrained and continue to, unfortunately, make it difficult for individuals to get help when they need help. So, generally, in Nigeria, you'd be surprised, even world over, and even in countries that we call developed countries, mental health issues continue to face a lot of stigma and discrimination, especially in people we call the BIPOC, the minorities. And so in Nigeria, unfortunately, it's a topic that is shrouded in secrecy. It's a topic that, like ostrich with head in sand, we continue to pretend about, not just suicide itself, but even mental health issues. We're often like, people who think that if it's not in my house, if it's not in our area, if it's not affecting my family member, then it doesn't concern us. So unfortunately, when suicides happen, it's not just the individual who is dead that is affected. The family is affected, workplaces are affected, schools are affected, families are affected, economies are affected, and of course, government systems are affected. So it's all of us at the end of the day. Everyone has a role to play. And until we come to that realization that no effort is too little, none is too much, until all of us put our hands on the plow and do not look back, then our work hasn't even started.
Can we do that?
This particular subject actually, brought back a very, very sad memory for me, But let's talk about safe language, right? Because we know some people actually worry about talking about suicide and how there's a myth that the more you talk about it, the more it, it gives other people an idea, it gets registered and everything. And I remember a few years back, a colleague of mine committed suicide. But, we were quick to, get him to the hospital. And right now, he's actually doing very well. But, in most cases, when things like that happen, it's difficult for you to even know what to say to that person in that moment. Some of us end up being harsh, saying, why would you do that to yourself? You know, you have a life to live. Why would you try to kill yourself? What about your family? You're very wicked. You know, we talk to them so harshly, you know, that I don't know what goes on in their mind. So how should we, you know, speak? What about safe language? How should we speak to, you know, suicidal people?
So I think it's particularly pertinent to reemphasize that the theme for this year is changing the narrative on suicide. And for us to want to change a narrative, it means that there had been a previous narrative that was, you know, put out there.
Yeah.
I'm particularly happy that you're talking about safe language, especially because we're all on the media.
Yeah.
And then even some of, you know, the words that we've used this morning. So again, when you use the word commit connotes a crime. It connotes a moral failing. So even around that language. So again, we go back to the basics, our thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Many people are of the opinion that people who decide to end their lives by suicide just chickened out. They were weak. They couldn't stand up to the challenges. But to be honest, it takes a lot of courage to look around and say that I feel hopeless, I feel worthless, and this is how I want it to end. It's not an easy decision to make. So it starts with how we think about it, how we show grace, show kindness and empathy, even when we don't know the stories behind why the individuals decided to do it. So beyond our thoughts, it's our talk. Yeah. What do we say? Usually people label people who are mentally ill with very casual, dismissive language. Oh, you call them, kolo mental, weary, yaba left, arrow. The language matters. Yeah. And it's also very important that, you know, you speak about language, especially for media. We talk about responsible reportage of suicide on the media. So it starts with our language. It starts with our attitude. It starts with our beliefs. We need to continue. I always say that you need to change the conversation to change the culture until we get to a point where we can talk very freely about suicide. I get very sad when I hear about suicides. I mean, see how you talk about the attempted suicide, because again, of, you know, your colleague. Luckily, you were able to save that person. There are many other people who haven't been saved. There are many families where people died by suicide, but they never mention it. I still saw 2 patients in the course of 2 months, and they're like, I heard that my father-in-law or my grandfather ended his life by suicide, but nobody has ever said anything about it. And of course, silence and secrecy continue to embolden the individuals who believe that, well, perhaps this is how I should end it. It doesn't help us. It continues to, you know, take us down that hole.
Wow. You know, this is a very sensitive topic to a lot of people, and there are a lot of things surrounding it. Some would say that, oh, it's a medical issue. And some people will say, oh, it's caused by social, cultural issues. And you know what? WHO will still say something like, okay, it's a crisis, a health crisis, a public health crisis. And I'm wondering, where do we want to tilt? You know, once we even talk about that, you know how things are in Nigeria presently. And the economic pressures are a big trigger for suicide. Aside that, what would you say are the risk factors? Because in Nigeria, I've already told you the biggest I can think of, the economy. I still talk to people on a casual basis, and I was scrolling on somebody's status this morning, and I saw a pistol she wrote. It was kind of cryptic. I just had to chip in that says everybody is going through, so don't think that you're alone. I haven't spoken to this person in 4 years. Do you know she replied? I said, wow, so you remember me? I said, I see you from time to time. What would you say are the risk factors? Is it the cultural and sociocultural factors that we mentioned, or is it just a medical thing that is nothing they can control?
All right, so there's a general representation and overthinking that suicides are because of mental health disorders. And true enough, in 80% of completed suicides, it's always been seen that there's an undetected, undiagnosed, and untreated mental illness. However, beyond mental illnesses, it's the fact that, again, social cultural issues, we usually look at causation from the perspective of biological, psychological, and social. Biological has to do with diseases. So whether an individual has a mental illness or a physical health condition, a debilitating physical health condition, including terminal illnesses, that can make an individual want to end their own lives. Sometimes it's psychological, exposure to traumatic life events, abuse, significant life trauma, you know, divorce, death of a loved one, loss of a loved item, or even loss of a job. And then, of course, the social, you have, you know, unemployment, the difficult and harsh financial realities. And then, of course, it's very important to also itemize that suicides can be impulsive. And so while some people actually deliberately make attempts, think about it, some people just look at it as a method of checking out. Yeah. So if an individual is in financial distress, financial difficulty, for instance, you put a huge amount of money somewhere, you're expecting returns, or, I mean, a few months ago we heard about the jam issue when the jam problem came out and this young girl ended her life. Or it could be, you know, unfortunately, unemployment, being disregarded by your partner, being spoken down on, or going through life's difficulties like a significant amount of people are going through now. Those are all the other risk factors that can make an individual consider that perhaps ending their lives may be a solution.
All right, well, we'll definitely come back to this conversation. We'll take a break now. When we come back, this conversation continues. Stay with us.
So today on World Suicide Prevention Day, our guest is Dr. Gbonjubola Abiri. I hope I got it right. I've been rehearsing it in my head since. A consultant psychiatrist and passionate mental health advocate. So the data says that more than 720,000 people die by suicide around the world every year. That's one death every 11 minutes. In the time, in the 1 hour that Jasiri is on air today, that means that 5 people would have died by suicide. So sadly for young people between the ages of 15 and 29 around the world, suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death. Doctor, so these numbers tell us that young people are the most vulnerable. What in the world, like let's focus on Nigerian youth, what in the world can be so overwhelming for the Nigerian youth that they see suicide as an option, as the only option?
Well, so when you were speaking and asking that question, I was thinking, men lie, women lie, but the numbers don't lie. The data doesn't lie. The data is out there and it's true. Unfortunately, a lot of people will look at young people and think, what have you gone through? What are you struggling with? But the times have changed. And beyond the times changing, the difficulties in the times have changed. So for instance, when you go to workplaces, you say that the pressures that people face in workplaces today is nothing as compared with what people used to face in those days. There are lots of advancements. There's advancements in technology. You know, sometimes I look at them and I'm thinking, your life is actually easier than when we were growing up. But the honest truth is they're faced with a lot of, challenges. And I think that one major thing that I always like to say about this young generation is that their level of resilience is not as much as we were. They don't face a lot of tough times. They sometimes, at the slightest,
They cower.
Is it that they cower? So, I'm so sorry. Is it that they cower? Is it more of a situation of some of the things we put up with, they're not willing to put up with? And in the bridge in between is that those things can build resilience.
So it's a mix of many things, I would tell you that. But I would honestly tell you that many young people these days are overprotected as compared with what we went through. There were certain things that we were able to go through, not abusive, not traumatic, but you'd find that parents in this age and time don't want their children to go through many of those things. I mean, case in view, bring in social media. We didn't have access to social media. Sometimes I look at my children and I say that these days you have a phone, you have a tab, you have a laptop, you have Netflix, and after 5 minutes there's no electricity, you come and say, "Mommy, I'm bored."
Hey, send you back to your room.
Don't sort yourself out.
Mommy, I'm bored.
In those days, television didn't start till 4 p.m. That's if you had electricity or if your parents had the luxury of a generator. So sometimes it's having too many of those things and not having to think about where the next big thing will come from. And then if you think about the exposure to social media as well, there's a lot going on social media. There's cyberbullying, there's stalking, there's comparison because young people want to be like the next person. And then there's this thing about wanting things done here and now.
This generation, delayed gratification
is also a significant factor in that, we'll speak to the fact that whether or not young people within those ages, the things that used to drive us are not the motivators for children and young adults these days. Our motivators are different. The things we look up to are different. The things that drive us are different. And all of these things put pressure on the young people
There's one that you forgot to mention.
Which is that
now we have to contend with AI and people
So
finding
enter
themselves
AI.
in relationships with AI. And now we're seeing situations where people apparently took their own, is taking their own life, correct language,
taking their own lives.
took their own lives, and there might have been some kind of influence from the AI chatbot.
Yes.
That's another thing you have to worry about as a parent now.
So enter AI as well. Again, technological advancements. So the many things that they are exposed to that we were not exposed to in our times. And again, I will go back to that conversation on resilience. We were more resilient than they are now. And so it's important for parents, caregivers, teachers, professionals to ensure that this generation of people are equipped with the skills of resilience, amongst many other things, I'll tell you.
All right, Dr. Abiri, we know that so many people actually suffer in silence. You know, I would actually say more men than women because the men do not like to talk about how they feel. But then, in your experience, what are the biggest barriers that actually stopping people from seeking help? And are those barriers the same for men and women?
Well, so yes, men don't like to talk. But men don't like to talk because society has conditioned them not to speak. We say things like
Men don't cry. Boys don't cry.
Men shouldn't be weak. Boys don't, you know, you should man up. And then many men have also sought substances of abuse, alcohol, to mention but a few, to help them numb their problems as well. And then even when men talk, many times they are shamed, many times they are judged, and many times they are invalidated and dismissed. And so they don't want to talk. But the barriers to mental health remain the same, regardless of whether it's men or women. I'll be honest with you, when my manager calls me and says, there's a patient that wants to see you and it's a man, I'm more likely to leave because men don't show up. However, the shame and the stigma, the ignorance, the way we talk about it, the way we dismiss it when people speak about it. I was somewhere yesterday and a woman said to me that she told her friend one day that, you know, I have a shrink, and the woman was like, is there something wrong with you? So again, the perception that for an individual to want to see a mental health professional, it is because there's something wrong. But of course, if you wanted to see a physician, it didn't mean that there has to be something wrong with you. It's a protective or preventive measure. And so until we get to that point where we understand that it's not until a car is broken down before you take it to a mechanic. Sometimes you just have these routine checks.
You do servicing.
It's not until your mind breaks down that you decide that you want to see a professional. So for instance, you can be going through turbulence at work, toxicity in the workplace, and you want to talk about it. You may be going through a difficulty in your relationship. You know, a few years ago, my dad was joking, and he said that he was speaking with a friend abroad who said that the kind of patients that we see in Nigeria are patients that are disheveled looking, most times forced into treatment. But abroad, you're more likely to see a patient call you and say, oh, Tom didn't say good morning to me this morning. Relationship issues. And that's the context of the society. That's the context of the society. So a simple check-in can be the reason why I just want to see my psychiatrist. It doesn't have to be when the big things happen. And people almost always wait till
the big things happen.
Because I don't think we're used, sorry.
Very quickly.
Because I don't think we're used to the small chit-chat. I want to check in with.
It's why you don't go on vacation.
It's why we don't go on leave. No, I'm going to see doctor because nobody didn't greet me this morning.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to get back into this conversation in just a moment. But we have bills to pay. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Time is not on our side with Dr. Abiri, but there are still some very important questions we want to look into. And we'll start with looking at systems and support in changing the narrative about suicide. So Nigeria's health system barely invests in mental health. And Nigeria reportedly has fewer than 300 psychiatrists for over 200 million people. Is that correct?
That is indeed correct.
Let me repeat that. Nigeria barely has over 300 psychiatrists for over 200 million people. Now, with such limited resources, what are the practical steps that we can take in terms of trying to reduce the rates of suicide? How do we also close the treatment gap so that people don't fall through the cracks? Because now, if people actually want to seek treatment, hello, how long is it going to take to get on the schedule of someone like you?
Well, and so that's why I often describe myself as an endangered species. Less than 300 to 200 million people. They're not a lot of us. And that's just psychiatrists. Imagine you had to look at psychologists, mental health nurses, and then other doctors.
The spectrum of what mental health encompasses.
Exactly. The numbers are, again, they're out there for everyone to see. And so it's the reason why I always say that the care for your mental health starts with you. If we keep waiting, again, till we break down, till everything falls apart before we decide to get help, then it's a big problem for all of us. It's the reason why I continue to promote and talk about how you can cater to yourself. So pretty much tips, mental health hygiene.
Like
when
DIY.
you wake up, DIY, do it yourself. So when you wake up every morning, well, almost every morning, you feel like I should brush my teeth, take a bath, go out. There are steps that you can take every day. Check in with yourself. How am I feeling? What exactly is going on with me? This happened to me. How am I reacting or responding to it?
True.
I always say that there's what we call the 4 L's. So we can do it for ourselves, we can do it for others. The first is that we must learn about mental health. What is it? We must stop talking about how it is back to sender, it's village people. It's a reality and we must start to talk about it. So we must learn about mental health for ourselves to be able to pick up the signs and symptoms, and for others as well. Number 2, we must look out for ourselves and others. How am I doing? What exactly is going on?
Check in with yourself.
Check in. I've been more agitated than I usually would be. What exactly is going on with me? Then, of course, listen in. Listen to yourself. There are days you don't feel as great as you used to. Ask yourself what is going on. And then, of course, you can always reach out to someone who genuinely cares about you. The last L is that you must link up with sources of support. Either linking yourself or other people with sources of support. And so the steps can be simple. Pay attention to yourself. Pay attention to others. But again, you cannot serve from an empty vessel. Take care of yourself first. Equip yourself with the skills, equip yourself with knowledge. Be sure that you are well. Don't lie to yourself. Have open, honest conversations with yourself. And if you're not feeling as great as you should, please, by all means, don't wait till everything falls apart.
And the building and the walls collapse.
And the walls collapse. See a professional.
You know, sometimes when I sit down, I'm wondering that should suicide prevention be treated like we treat all these major campaigns like road safety or HIV campaigns with aggressive public education. You know, you have public health, you have hotlines, awareness drives. Other countries have significantly reduced their, suicide rate through national strategies. They take it upon themselves. Do you think Nigeria as a country, even though we declare state of emergency in every agency,
every area,
but do you think it's time Nigeria has something we will call like a dedicated national suicide prevention policy?
Well, definitely. The answer to that is yes. Every day should be mental health day. Every day should be, suicide prevention day. We should be talking about these things very regularly. To be honest, efforts are improving. NGOs are, stepping up. Some governmental agencies are also stepping up. But it's still far from what we should be looking at. It's far from what we should achieve, because the work, there's a lot done, but there's still so much to do.
And that's so much to do. I'll just take Lola's question here. We have 2 very big influences that throw a shadow over conversations around suicide, and that's culture and religion. And in terms of the role of faith leaders and community influencers in terms of playing a role to destigmatize suicide, what do we need to do? And I'll ask that with also saying, what is also the cultural mind shift? Because if our religious leaders and our cultural leaders still continue to talk about suicide in the manner in which they do, or continue to ignore it, or even families are so scared oftentimes, they'll just tell you somebody passed away, but you may not know that the person actually committed suicide. And so even the numbers are skewed. The numbers are probably a lot more than are reported, but families are afraid of the taboo and the stigma. And they'll tell you don't want to marry into that family because there's something wrong with them. Somebody committed suicide. Somebody took their own life. So where do we put these 2 very, very strong influences on Nigerians in terms of also having them be responsible and being part of changing the cultural mindset that we have regarding suicide?
Easy to say that it's village people who are responsible.
Yes, again, so pretty much what you would call, quote unquote, the spiritual influences and the cultural influences. I think that when religious leaders start to take the responsibility, some already are, but some are still catching on. And one of the most important things that they can do is help people understand that faith and medicine are not in competition, but they are complementary, and that the most important thing is that we want to keep this individual alive. Yes, this individual may be going through a tough, difficult challenge at this point in time, but it does not mean that tomorrow may not be a better day. Exactly. It doesn't mean that it's a personal failure. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. We all go through difficult moments, but we, show up differently, get support, which is extremely important from family, friends, loved ones, as much as possible. And so it's important that the religious institutions, whether they be Christian, Muslim, or traditional, understand the magnitude of responsibility that lies with them. you must open your doors for these conversations to be had. Whether we're talking about it or not, they continue to happen. And so they must understand the role that they have to play. With culture, you know, unfortunately, even in the Yoruba language, there's this, you know, parlance that they say that if someone is going through a rough time, instead of that it's better to end an individual's life. No, it's not. It's not, because there's one saying like that. It said, "Ikuyaju esin lo." I don't know how to describe what esin is. It's like shame. Yes, like reproach. No, we must start to change those narratives again, which is the conversation for today. We must start to look at them and say no. There have been people, and I know people like that, who were going to end their own lives because they thought that was the end. But somehow they survived through that storm with support. And now they look back, they know much better, and they do better. So again, you know, in the words of someone I like to quote very much, when we know better, we do better. Honestly, and so we need to know better so we can do better.
I wish we had more time, but it's time to draw the conversation, the curtains on today's conversation. Thank you very much, Dr. Gbonjubola Abiri. Thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate you being here. As we mark World Suicide Prevention Day, let's remember suicide is painful, personal, and devastating. But above all, it is preventable. Behind every statistic is a face, a family, and a future that could have been saved. If there's one thing this conversation reminds us, it's that silence costs more lives. We all have a role to play in breaking the stigma and creating safe spaces for people to seek help. And if you're watching right now and you're struggling, please know this: you are not alone. Your life matters, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength, never weakness. Together, we can replace despair with hope and ensure that no life is cut short before its time. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be here tomorrow.
Bye.
Yo.